All right, is permutation. This one is the trickiest because it is the messiest. There is, unless so there's a way to solve it not messy, but you have to put restrictions on is permutation. Again, I will solve this fully on Monday, but I figured I'd start it here. So public static Boolean E is permutation. List of E A, list of E B, let's call it, and let's be proper, list A, list B. And we're going to assume that both of them are permutations for right now. Return true. So what does it mean for two things to be permutations of each other? Two things are permutations of each other if they are composed of the same elements, but in different orders. So for instance, the word wolf and the word flow, if we were looking at word strings instead of lists, right? Wolf and flow, right? They are permutations of each other because they're made of the exact same letters and the exact same quantities of letters, right? On the other hand, wool and wolf, let's see, are not permutations of each other. Okay, or in another example, 1, 2, 3, and 2, 1, 2, 3, 1. These two things are permutations of each other. However, 1, 1, 2, and 2, 2, 1, these are not permutations of each other. Now, why is that? They are not permutations because they have two different quantities. One, there's 2 1s here, and there's 2 2s here, right? This one has 2 1s. This one has 2 2s. So those are not permutations of each other. You have to have the same elements and the same number of elements. So another example of one that is not 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2. It says my internet connection is unstable. Are people having issues with me?
You roboted a little bit, but it seems like you're back to normal.
Okay. So these are not examples. So this is not a permutation. And this is, and these are not permutations of each other because you got to have the same number of elements and the same number of each element. Okay. So how do we solve this? Okay. Well, there's basically 2 ways to solve this. The first is to write a nested for loop like you've never written a nested for loop before, which is a nested for loop with 2 for loops in it, not a triply nested loop. But what you're going to need to do is basically you say, okay, for every item in list A, I need to count the number of times it appears in list A and count the number of times it appears in list B. If those match, then we're good. But if those don't match, then it's not a permutation, and so we have to return false. And we do that for every item in list A. The first thing we can do, though, is we can set up a very easy thing that makes logic for this easier, which is if list A dot size is not equal to list B dot size, return false. If we do, by setting this up, again, this makes the logic a lot easier because we can assume now that the lists have the same number of items. Because if list A and list B have different number of items, they by definition can't be it's impossible for them to be permutations of each other if they have different items. Make sense? Or different numbers of items. So that is strategy 1. Strategy 2 is sorting these items. Okay. So if I sort list A and I sort list B, awesome. Because if I sort Wolf and I sort Flo, they'll both be in sorted order. They're both Flo. And if I sort 1, 2, 3 and 3, 2, 1 in sorted order, they're going to be the same. 1, 1, 2 and 2, 2, 1. If I sort both of them, it will be 1, 1, 2 and 1, 2, 2 respectively. So those are different items, or those are different. So yeah. So you can sort these things. However, if you try to use collections.sort, you'll run into an interesting issue about comparables. So if you try that, see if you can figure it out. I will end it. I will be happy to go over that with you on Monday or when you run into that problem here. All right, everybody good?